Dr. Catherine Morgan's fingers drummed against her coffee mug, leaving rings of condensation on the holographic displays surrounding her workstation. The Arecibo IA facility hummed with its usual midnight symphony, the whir of quantum processors, the soft beeping of monitoring equipment, and the occasional hiss of the aging coffee maker in the corner. Another night, another billion empty frequencies, she muttered, taking a sip of her fifth coffee. The liquid had gone cold hours ago, but she barely noticed. 12 years of scanning the cosmos for intelligent signals had taught her patience, if nothing else. The facility's massive underground complex housed Earth's most advanced deep space listening array. Unlike its predecessor, Arecibo IA didn't just listen for radio waves. It monitored everything from gravitational fluctuations to quantum entanglement patterns. Tonight, like most nights, it was picking up the usual cosmic background noise. Until it wasn't. Kate nearly dropped her mug when the first anomaly appeared. A pattern emerged in the gravitational wave detector, not the chaotic spikes of colliding neutron stars or the rhythmic pulses of rotating pulsars, but something else entirely. Something impossible. "Computer, run diagnostic sequence alpha through delta," she commanded, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The system complied, confirming what she already suspected. The equipment was functioning perfectly. The pattern continued to unfold across her screens, transforming from seemingly random fluctuations into something that made her scientific worldview tilt on its axis. Pure mathematics, encoded in the very fabric of space-time. Not just simple arithmetic, but complex theoretical frameworks that humanity had only recently begun to grasp. With trembling fingers, she initiated the facility's emergency protocol. Within minutes, her fellow scientists began arriving, their faces shifting from annoyance to amazement as they processed the data. "It's not random," Dr. James Chen, her colleague in quantum mechanics, whispered. "Look at these intervals. They're following a modified Fibonacci sequence, but in 11 dimensions." Kate nodded, her mind already racing ahead. "But it's incomplete. See these gaps." She pointed to several sections where the pattern seemed to break down. "It's like they're waiting for someone to fill in the blanks," James finished. The next few hours passed in a blur of calculations and theories. As dawn painted the New Mexico sky in shades of purple and gold, Kate stood before the facility's governing board, trying to keep her exhaustion at bay. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice echoing in the hastily assembled conference room, "what we're looking at is, without question, proof of intelligent extraterrestrial life. But more than that, it's an invitation. Or perhaps," she paused, choosing her words carefully, "a test." The room erupted in questions, but Kate's attention was drawn to her phone buzzing in her pocket. A text from her daughter's school, "Parent-teacher conference tomorrow." She almost laughed at the mundanity of it, standing here at what might be the most significant moment in human history, still having to juggle the everyday responsibilities of being a single mom. As the day progressed, news of the signal spread through the scientific community like wildfire. Other listening posts around the world confirmed the pattern, and soon Kate's inbox was flooded with theories and proposed responses from every major research institution on Earth. But something nagged at her. The mathematical sequence was elegant, yes, but almost too perfect, as if designed specifically to catch humanity's attention. And those gaps, they weren't random. They formed their own pattern, one that teased at the edges of her understanding. That night, as she finally headed home, Kate gazed up at the star-filled New Mexico sky. Somewhere out there, an intelligence beyond human comprehension had reached out, not with words or pictures, but with pure mathematical poetry encoded in gravity itself. "What are you really asking us?" she whispered to the stars. "And more importantly, what happens if we get the answer wrong?" She didn't know it yet, but the answer would come from a most unexpected source, and would change not just her life, but the very nature of human communication itself. Kate's MIT lab had never been what you'd call organized, but now it looked like a quantum physics tornado had torn through it. Holographic displays flickered with competing mathematical models, while traditional whiteboards covered every wall, their surfaces a maze of equations and hastily scrawled theories. "You can't be serious," Dr. Victor Martinez said, staring at her latest calculations. "The entire scientific community is trying to decode this signal with conventional mathematics, and you want to." He trailed off, shaking his head. "Throw away everything we think we know about communication," Kate finished, running her fingers through her disheveled hair. "That's exactly what I'm suggesting." 3 months had passed since the signal's discovery, and Earth's response had devolved into a cosmic shouting match. Every major power on the planet was broadcasting their own messages into space, each more complex than the last. Mathematical proofs, physics equations, chemical formulas. Humanity was emptying its entire scientific library into the void. But the original signal remained unchanged, those mysterious gaps still waiting to be filled. Kate turned to her quantum interference display, where a miniature light show danced in perfect synchronization with the alien pattern. "Look at this," she said, manipulating the controls. "We've been so focused on what the signal is saying that we've ignored how it's saying it." Victor leaned closer, his skepticism momentarily forgotten. The quantum states in the display shifted, creating interference patterns that mimic the gravitational waves of the original message. "The medium is the message," Kate continued, excitement creeping into her voice. "They're not just using gravitational waves as a carrier signal. They're showing us something about the fundamental nature of consciousness itself." "That's a hell of a leap, Kate," Victor warned, but she could see the curiosity in his eyes. Just then, her phone buzzed. Another missed call from the Department of Defense. They'd been hounding her for weeks, pushing for practical applications of the signal research, as if making first contact with an alien civilization needed to be weaponized. Kate ignored it, focusing instead on the quantum display. Every civilization in the galaxy probably developed mathematics, language, even music, she mused. But consciousness, the actual experience of being aware, that might be the only truly universal constant. She adjusted the quantum field, watching as the particles responded to her input. It reminded her of playing the piano, not following sheet music, but improvising, letting the music flow naturally from emotion to expression. "What if this isn't a message to be decoded?" she said softly. "What if it's an invitation to join a conversation we didn't even know we were having?" Victor was quiet for a long moment, watching the quantum patterns shift and dance. "Even if you're right," he finally said, "how do you propose we respond? We can barely maintain quantum coherence in the lab, let alone broadcast it across light years." Kate smiled, the kind of smile that had gotten her into and out of trouble throughout her career. "Remember that quantum entanglement project they shut down at CERN last year? The one they said was too unstable." "Kate, no," Victor groaned. "That project nearly created a localized quantum singularity. The EU banned any further research." "Exactly." Kate's eyes sparkled with the fever of scientific breakthrough. "We weren't failing. We were stumbling into exactly what we needed. We just didn't know it at the time." She pulled up the old CERN data, overlaying it with the alien signal pattern. The correlation was undeniable. "We don't need to send them words or math," she declared. "We need to show them we understand by speaking the language of reality itself." Victor stared at the display, then at Kate, then back at the display. Finally, he sighed the sigh of a man who knew he was about to get dragged into something either brilliant or catastrophic. "The Dodi is going to shut us down the moment they catch wind of this." Kate was already pulling up the old CERN schematics. "Then we better work fast," she said, her mind racing with possibilities. "Because I think I know exactly what those gaps in the signal are for, and why no one else has managed to fill them." What she didn't say, what she barely dared to think, was that humanity's response might not just answer the alien signal. It might change the very way the galaxy understood consciousness itself. Kate hadn't slept in 36 hours. The quantum interference patterns on her lab displays had begun to blur together, mocking her with their endless, incomprehensible dance. She'd been so sure about her consciousness theory, but after weeks of failed attempts to replicate the alien signal's quantum states, doubt was creeping in. "Mom," Emma's voice cut through her exhaustion. "Are you going to watch us play with the quantum toys?" Kate blinked, suddenly remembering why her 9-year-old daughter and 20 other fourth graders were in her lab. The school field trip she'd promised weeks ago to demonstrate some cool science stuff. "Of course, honey. She gestured vaguely at her displays. "Give me 1 minute." Ms. Rodriguez already set up the quantum playground, Emma said, tugging at her lab coat. "Come on." The quantum playground was what they called their educational setup, a simplified version of their research equipment that translated quantum states into visible light patterns. Kids loved it because it made pretty colors. The NSF loved it because it got children interested in quantum physics. Kate followed her daughter to where Ms. Rodriguez had gathered the class around the circular display platform. The children's faces were bathed in the soft blue glow of the quantum field visualizer. "Okay, everyone," Ms. Rodriguez announced, "remember what we learned about wavelengths. Let's see who can make the prettiest pattern." Kate leaned against a workbench, stifling a yawn. At least this would give her a break from staring at. She froze. Emma and her friend Tyler had their hands hovering over the quantum field, giggling as they tried to push the light patterns toward each other. But something about their movement caught Kate's eye. The interference pattern they'd created. "Hold that," she shouted, startling everyone. She rushed to her main console, pulling up the alien signal data. Her hands trembled as she overlaid the children's pattern with a section of the signal. They matched. Not perfectly, but the fundamental structure was identical. "Emma, Tyler, can you do that again?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The children shrugged and returned to their game, pushing and pulling at the light fields with their hands. Kate watched, her scientific mind warring with what her eyes were telling her. The children weren't thinking about quantum states or wave functions. They were just playing, following their intuition. And somehow, they were creating patterns that the world's top physicists hadn't been able to replicate. "Ms. Rodriguez," Kate called out, "could you have them all try it together? Like a game?" The teacher nodded, organizing the children into a circle around the display. "Let's make the biggest, prettiest pattern we can." What happened next would forever change Kate's understanding of quantum physics. 20 children, acting on pure instinct, began weaving light patterns together. They treated it like a game of cat's cradle with light, each child adding their own touch to the growing design. And there, emerging from their playful collaboration, was an exact match for one of the signal's gap patterns. "How are they doing this?" Victor whispered. Kate hadn't even noticed him enter the lab. "They're not thinking about it," she replied, her voice filled with wonder. "That's the key. We've been trying to solve this like a mathematical equation, but they're treating it like a conversation," Victor finished. Kate watched as the children continued to play, their pattern growing more complex yet somehow more harmonious. They weren't following any rules or formulas. They were simply responding to each other, adjusting their movements based on what felt right. The aliens weren't looking for the most advanced civilization, Kate said, the implications hitting her like a thunderbolt. They were looking for one that could still think like children. She grabbed her phone, fingers flying over the keypad as she messaged her research team. They needed to completely redesign their approach. Forget the mathematical proofs and quantum calculations. They needed to understand how children could so effortlessly do what adults found impossible. As she watched Emma laugh with her friends, still playing with the quantum patterns, Kate felt a surge of hope. Humanity's greatest strength in this cosmic puzzle might not be their advanced technology or scientific knowledge, but their ability to see the universe through unclouded eyes. The key to communicating across the stars had been in front of them all along. in the untamed creativity of the human spirit. "This is absolutely insane," Victor said, his voice echoing through the abandoned missile silo. Their makeshift lab, hidden beneath the Nevada desert, hummed with jury-rigged quantum equipment. "If the DoD finds us—" "They won't," Kate interrupted, checking connections on their cobbled-together quantum transmitter. "Not until it's too late, anyway." The past week had been a blur of secret preparations. After the children's breakthrough, Kate had known they'd need to act fast and off the grid. The government would never approve their experimental approach, not when billions had already been invested in traditional response methods. Her phone buzzed. Another message from James at MIT. "Dodd asking questions. Cleanup complete at lab. Be careful." She'd orchestrated quite the vanishing act. Critical equipment had malfunctioned and been sent for repairs, only to be rerouted here. Key data had been quietly backed up and deleted from official servers. Her team had scattered, taking carefully timed vacations or sick days. "Emma's safe with your sister?" Victor asked, noting her concern as she checked her phone. Kate nodded. "Sarah thinks we're at a classified research site, which isn't entirely a lie." She managed a weak smile. "Emma thinks it's an adventure." The silo's original blast doors, designed to withstand nuclear war, now protected a secret of a different kind. Their quantum transmitter, built using the children's playground design as a template, took up most of the central chamber. It wasn't elegant, but it was powerful. And more importantly, it was built to transmit pure consciousness states rather than mathematical signals. "Final diagnostics complete," announced Dr. Rachel Torres, their quantum electronics expert. "But Kate, the power requirements for this transmission. It'll light up every sensor from here to Salt Lake City." "We'll only have one shot," Kate agreed, studying the real-time feed of the alien signal. Those mysterious gaps still pulsed, waiting. Make it count. They'd spent days preparing the transmission sequence, based entirely on recordings of the children playing with quantum fields. No mathematics, no formal patterns, just pure, intuitive responses to the alien signal's rhythm. "Think of it like a dance," Kate had explained to her team. "We're not sending words or equations. We're showing them we can feel the music." A warning light flashed on Rachel's console. Multiple vehicles approaching from the north. 20 minutes out, tops. Kate's heart raced. They'd been discovered sooner than expected. "Start the power-up sequence." "Kate," Victor grabbed her arm. "If we do this wrong, we're not just risking our careers. This much quantum coherence, we could tear a hole in reality." She met his gaze. "And if we do nothing, humanity misses its chance to join something greater than ourselves." She gently pulled away. Sometimes the greatest discoveries require the biggest risks. The transmitter hummed to life, its quantum field generators creating patterns of light eerily similar to the children's playground. Kate took her position at the main console, fingers hovering over the controls. "Multiple vehicles, 10 minutes out," Rachel reported. "Military signatures confirmed." "Beginning transmission," Kate announced, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. Her fingers moved across the controls like a pianist performing from memory, guiding the quantum fields into dance. The silo filled with shifting light as the transmission built power. Not just visible light. Quantum fields made manifest, weaving patterns that shouldn't have been possible according to conventional physics. "Quantum coherence at 60% and climbing," Victor called out. "Field stability holding." Kate didn't respond. She was completely absorbed in the transmission, her movements guided by intuition rather than calculation. She thought of Emma playing with the quantum fields, of children's laughter echoing through her lab, of the pure joy of discovery unconstrained by formal knowledge. Military vehicles. 5 minutes. The quantum fields pulsed and swirled, building towards something unprecedented. Kate could feel it. Not through her instruments, but through some deeper sense. They weren't just sending a signal. They were reaching out with humanity's raw consciousness, unfettered by words or symbols. "They're here," Rachel shouted as floodlights illuminated the silo entrance. Kate's fingers danced across the controls for one final sequence. "Too late," she whispered. "It's already done." The quantum fields flared blindingly bright, and in that moment, humanity spoke its first true words to the cosmos, not with language, but with pure, wordless understanding. The universe, to everyone's surprise, was about to answer back. The first response came not from the military officers breaking down the silo door, but from the cosmos itself. The quantum displays erupted with patterns so complex they made Kate's eyes water. Behind her, she heard gasps from both her team and the intruding soldiers. "Stand down," a commanding voice ordered, but even the military personnel seemed transfixed by the light show unfolding before them. "My God," Victor breathed, "look at the quantum coherence readings. They're off the scale." The alien signal, which had maintained its steady rhythm for months, suddenly transformed. New patterns emerged, filling the mysterious gaps with crystalline precision. But more than that, there were other signals now, hundreds of them, flowing in from all directions across space. "Those are other civilizations," Rachel said, her hands flying across her console. "They're all responding at once. We've triggered some kind of cascade." Colonel Sarah Hayes, who had burst in moments ago, ready to arrest them all, now stood slack-jawed beside Kate's station. "Dr. Morgan, you have exactly 30 seconds to explain what we're looking at." "The galaxy is waking up," Kate replied, her voice filled with wonder. "And we just rang the alarm." The quantum displays showed civilization after civilization joining the conversation. Some signals were ancient, carrying the weight of millions of years of evolution. Others were younger, but all of them shared one characteristic: they had failed to fill those crucial gaps in the original message, until humanity, with their childlike approach, had done the impossible. "Incoming," Victor shouted as new readings spiked across their instruments. Massive gravitational distortion in high Earth orbit. Military phones began buzzing simultaneously. Reports flooded in from observatories worldwide. Something was appearing above the planet, not with the violence of an invasion, but with the deliberate grace of an anticipated arrival. The Arcturians had come to meet the species that had finally answered their puzzle correctly. Their ships defied conventional physics, existing in multiple quantum states simultaneously. They cast aurora-like lights across the night sky, visible even through the silo's thick walls via their security feeds. Humanity's first glimpse of their cosmic examiners came not through terrifying weapons or overwhelming displays of power, but through beauty that brought tears to eyes across the globe. "Dr. Morgan," Colonel Hayes said, her tone shifted from militant to diplomatic, "I believe you're needed upstairs. The President is asking for you personally." As Kate rose from her station, her phone chimed with a text from her sister. "Emma says the sky is dancing. Did you do this, Kate?" She smiled, typing back, "No, honey. All the children did." The next few hours passed in a blur of high-level briefings and global video conferences. Kate found herself explaining their breakthrough to a panel of world leaders, all while the Arcturian ships continued their silent ballet above the Earth. "You have to understand," she told them, "we weren't chosen because we're the most advanced. We were chosen because we still know how to play." The truth, as it emerged, was both humbling and exhilarating. The Arcturians had ceded their test across the galaxy eons ago, watching as civilization after civilization attempted to respond with increasingly complex mathematical and linguistic solutions. But they weren't looking for technical sophistication. They were searching for something far rarer. "Your species," the first translated Arcturian message read, "has maintained its connection to raw consciousness despite technological advancement. You understand, as few do, that true communication transcends the barriers of form and structure." As night fell over Nevada, Kate stood outside the silo, gazing up at the luminescent ships. Victor joined her, holding 2 cups of much-needed coffee. "You know what this means, right?" he asked, handing her a cup. "Everything we thought we knew about physics, consciousness, communication, it's all about to change." Kate thought about Emma and her classmates, playing with quantum fields without a single equation in their minds. She thought about all the civilizations that had tried to solve the puzzle with pure logic, missing the simple truth that children had grasped instinctively. "No," she replied, smiling as the ship's lights painted impossible colors across the desert sky. "Everything's about to begin." The United Nations General Assembly had never seen anything quite like this. Kate stood before representatives from every nation on Earth, while above them, through the vast glass ceiling, the quantum-shifted forms of 3 Arcturian delegates rippled like living aurora borealis. "Your species," the Central Arcturian communicated, its thoughts manifesting directly in the minds of all present, "stands at a crossroads. You have shown the potential. Now you must prove it wasn't mere chance." Kate felt the weight of billions of human lives in that moment. The past week had been a crash course in galactic politics, learning that thousands of civilizations had been attempting to solve the Arcturians' puzzle for millennia. Some had been trying longer than humanity had existed. "With respect," she responded, carefully forming her thoughts as they'd learned to do. "How can we prove something that came from pure intuition? The very nature of our success defies formal testing." The Arcturians' form shifted through shades of deep blue and violet, precisely the question we hope you would ask. Images flooded the assembly hall, holographic displays of countless alien civilizations. Each had developed incredible technologies, mathematical proofs of staggering complexity, linguistic systems that could convey multiple concepts simultaneously. All of them, the Arcturian continued, tried to prove their worth through achievement. None understood that worth itself cannot be proven, only expressed. A murmur ran through the assembled diplomats. Kate noticed several reaching for their tablets, probably trying to parse the philosophical implications. She thought of Emma instead, and how children never tried to prove they were worthy of play. They simply played. "So what exactly do you want from us?" asked the Secretary General, her voice steadied despite the unprecedented situation. The Arcturians' forms pulsed with golden light. "We want you to fail." Silence fell over the assembly. More precisely, the alien consciousness continued. "We want you to try to prove yourselves, to attempt to demonstrate your worthiness through careful planning and execution, and to fail. And then, in that failure, to show us what makes your species truly unique." Kate suddenly understood. "You want us to stop trying to impress you." Your first response succeeded precisely because it wasn't trying to succeed, the Arcturian confirmed. It was pure expression, unburdened by expectation. Now we must know, can your species maintain that purity of consciousness even when aware of the stakes? The assembly erupted in discussions. Representatives huddled with their advisors, already trying to formulate strategies and plans. Kate watched them with growing concern. They were falling into exactly the trap the Arcturians had described. She stepped forward again. "I have a 9-year-old daughter," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Last week, she taught me more about quantum physics by playing than I'd learned in 20 years of study. If you want to test humanity's worth, don't ask our governments or our scientists. Ask our children." The Arcturians' forms brightened perceptibly. "An interesting proposal, Dr. Morgan. But surely you understand the Galactic Council cannot base its decisions on the games of children." Kate smiled. "Why not? You already have." She gestured to the images of alien civilizations still floating around the hall. "Look at them. All that knowledge, all that advancement. But when was the last time any of them simply played with the fabric of reality? When did they last approach the universe with wonder instead of analysis?" The Arcturians' colors shifted rapidly, their equivalent of intense discussion. Finally, the central figure spoke again. "You propose we judge humanity not by your ability to prove yourselves, but by your ability to remain playful. I propose you judge us by our ability to remember that the greatest discoveries often come not from trying to discover, but from being open to wonder," Kate replied. "We succeeded in answering your signal because we hadn't forgotten how to play with quantum fields like children. If you want to test us, test our ability to maintain that spirit even as we advance." The assembly hall fell silent again, but this time with anticipation rather than shock. Above them, the Arcturians' forms began to pulse with a new rhythm, one that, somehow, felt like laughter. "Very well, Dr. Morgan," they communicated. "Let the trial begin. Show us how humanity plays." "Mom, it's like the biggest playdate ever." Emma's excitement was contagious as she looked out over Central Park, where thousands of children had gathered. Similar scenes were playing out in parks, schools, and public spaces across the globe. Kate squeezed her daughter's hand. "Remember what I told you. Just play like you did in the lab. Don't try to make anything specific happen." The quantum resonance fields had been set up in major locations worldwide, simplified versions of the playground equipment from Kate's lab, but connected through a network of quantum entanglement. The Arcturians washed from their ships, their aurora-like forms visible in the evening sky. "Dr. Morgan," Colonel Hayes approached, tablet in hand. "We've got confirmation. 2 billion people are connected to the network, with another billion expected in the next hour. Are you sure about this?" Kate watched as Emma ran to join her friends near one of the quantum field generators. "No," she admitted, "but that's exactly the point." The plan, if it could be called that, was beautifully simple. No coordination, no rehearsal, no attempt to create specific patterns. Just pure, spontaneous interaction with quantum fields on a global scale. Children would lead the way, with adults encouraged to follow their example. "Remember," Kate's voice carried across the global broadcast, "don't try to prove anything. Don't try to create anything specific. Just play." At precisely sunset in New York, the quantum fields activated worldwide. Emma and her friends were among the first to reach out, their hands moving through the visible manifestation of quantum states as naturally as if they were making shapes in a pond. The effect was immediate and stunning. Quantum patterns rippled across the globe, carrying the pure, unfiltered consciousness of humanity. Children laughed as they created swirling lights, their joy becoming part of the pattern itself. Adults, hesitant at first, gradually joined in, led by the example of their children. The readings, Victor's voice crackled over Kate's earpiece. "Kate, this is beyond anything we've ever measured. The quantum coherence, it's like the entire species is becoming one giant quantum computer." But it wasn't computation that was happening. It was communication in its purest form. The sharing of experience, emotion, and consciousness itself. Through the quantum fields, a child in New York could feel the wonder of a grandmother in Beijing, could share the playful energy of students in Lagos, could dance with the joy of farmers in Buenos Aires. The Arcturian ships descended lower, their forms pulsing with intense colors. Kate could feel their surprise, not at the technology, but at the purity of the expression. Humanity wasn't trying to demonstrate mastery over quantum mechanics. They were simply playing with it, like children discovering a new toy. Hours passed, but the global participation only grew stronger. The patterns became more complex yet somehow more harmonious, as if humanity was learning to sing together in a language that transcended words. "Look, Mom," Emma called out. She and her friends had created a pattern that seemed to dance with the aurora of the Arcturian ships. Without trying, they'd achieved what teams of physicists had failed to do: natural quantum resonance with alien consciousness. The pattern spread, picked up by others around the world. Soon, the quantum field was alive with a dance between human and alien consciousness, each learning from and playing with the other. The Arcturians' forms began to shift and flow in response, creating a duet of consciousness that stretched across species and space itself. "They're calling it the Silent Symphony," Colonel Hayes said softly, watching the display of light and energy above. "It's trending globally." Kate smiled. "We're not just showing them we can play their game. We're inviting them to play ours." As night fell across New York, the quantum fields pulsed with the combined consciousness of billions. But it wasn't the number that mattered. It was the quality of the connection. Humanity had proven they could maintain their sense of wonder and play even when faced with the most profound moment in their history. The Arcturians' response came not in words or thoughts, but in a shifting of their very form. Their aurora-like bodies began to dance with the human quantum patterns, creating something entirely new, a bridge between species built not on protocol or proof, but on the shared joy of discovery. Emma looked up at her mother, her hands still moving through the quantum field. "Are we winning, Mom?" Kate watched as human and alien consciousness wove together in patterns of indescribable beauty. "No, honey," she replied. "We're playing. And that's even better." 6 months after the Silent Symphony, Kate stood in the great hall of the newly established Quantum Empathy Academy, nestled high in the Himalayan mountains. Through the vast windows, she could see the crystalline spires of the Arcturian Teaching Center floating serenely above the snow-covered peaks, its quantum-shifted form catching the morning light like frozen aurora. "Remember," she addressed the assembled group of alien students, their forms ranging from vaguely humanoid to utterly abstract. "The goal isn't to master the quantum fields. It's to forget mastery entirely." Emma, now a regular fixture at the academy, was already leading by example. She and a group of children from around the world were playing with a new generation of quantum interfaces, showing their alien counterparts how to approach consciousness manipulation with childlike wonder. "It's still remarkable," Victor said, joining Kate at the observation window. "Some of these species have been studying quantum mechanics for millions of years, and they're learning from 9-year-olds. "They're not just learning physics," Kate replied, watching as a crystalline being attempted to mimic Emma's carefree movements. "They're remembering how to play." The galaxy had changed profoundly since humanity's successful trial. The Galactic Council, once a forum for advanced civilizations to share technological achievements, had transformed into something more fundamental, a place where consciousness itself could be explored and shared. Kate's phone buzzed with a message from Colonel Hayes, now Earth's primary liaison to the Council. "The Centaurians are requesting enrollment. That's the 5th Type IOA civilization this month." The Academy had become more than just a school. It was a symbol of humanity's unique contribution to galactic society. While other species had pursued advancement through rigorous study and technological development, humans had remembered the importance of approaching the universe with wonder rather than just analysis. "Dr. Morgan," a melodious thought voice interrupted. One of the Arcturian instructors had manifested beside them. "The Regellian delegation is having difficulty with the concept of spontaneous expression. Perhaps you could demonstrate." Kate smiled, remembering her own journey from rigid scientist to someone who could truly appreciate the art of unstructured discovery. She joined the group of frustrated Regellians, their crystalline forms clouded with confusion. "Watch Emma," she suggested. Her daughter was creating quantum patterns that danced and swirled, responding not to mathematical principles but to pure joy. "Don't try to understand how she's doing it. Just feel what she's feeling." Slowly, the Regellians' forms began to clear. One of them tentatively reached out, touching the quantum field with something approaching playfulness. The resulting pattern was small and unstable, but it carried something precious, a spark of spontaneity that had been lost to their species for eons. "Mom," Emma called out excitedly, "look what we discovered." She and her alien playmates had created something unprecedented, a quantum state that existed simultaneously as both pattern and antipattern, defying the traditional laws of physics. They had achieved it not through careful calculation, but through simple, joyful experimentation. "Document that," Victor muttered, reaching for his tablet. "No," Kate stopped him. "Let them play with it. Understanding will come naturally." That was the real legacy of humanity's wordless victory, not just proving themselves worthy of galactic citizenship, but showing the galaxy a different way of understanding reality itself. The quantum fields that once carried cold data now pulsed with the joy of discovery, the wonder of play, and the pure expression of consciousness, unfettered by formal constraints. As the day drew to a close, Kate found Emma sitting with a young Arcturian. Their forms merged in the quantum field as they shared experiences beyond the need for translation. The sight brought tears to her eyes, not just for what humanity had achieved, but for what they had helped the galaxy remember. "Did we change everything, Mom?" Emma asked later, as they watched the sunset paint impossible colors through the quantum-shifted atmosphere. Kate thought about the old days of rigid formulas and structured responses, of civilizations so advanced they'd forgotten how to wonder, of a galaxy that had nearly lost its ability to play. "No, honey," she replied, watching as another ship of eager students descended through the evening sky. "We just reminded the universe how to be young again." And somewhere in the quantum fields that connected all consciousness, she felt the galaxy smile.